Hey, welcome
What's
to
up, guys?
episode 3 of 90's Comics Strike Back, where hopefully I'll be able to be on the whole episode.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
Hey,
to the
guys.
show.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
So, our guest may not be here because I thought it was Thursday and I told him Thursday. I tried to message him, but nothing yet.
Well then.
Yeah.
I thought I would be the one forgetting days. I don't. I am pretty sure we said Wednesday, but I don't know. Maybe me and Marco were just both on the same page wrongly.
I doubt it.
I thought I put in Wednesday in the book in the group chat, but I was also thinking Thursday. So who knows? Because when Terry said Thursday, I was like, yeah, that would have been a good day too.
Yeah, either one worked for me, but this works.
All right, today we're going to be covering I think it came out in 1996, the Dark Horse Legend imprint, which brought together Frank Miller, John Byrne, Art Adams, Walt Simonson, and some other names I'm forgetting. Pull up the wiki page because I think there's a section.
Actually, it started in 94.
94.
Was it 94? I thought
Yeah.
Wikipedia said 96. Maybe it was 94.
Yeah, it's Babe was hold on, let's see, 94. Danger Unlimited, February 94.
Maybe it was a little bit
Yeah.
before that then, because I thought Next Men was the first thing he did at Dark Horse on the Legend imprint.
Well, Next Men wasn't Next Men wasn't under the Legend imprint until issue 19.
Oh, okay. Where was it before that then?
I guess just
It was just Dark Horse Prime or whatever you want to call it, but it wasn't.
Oh, okay. The regular Dark Horse.
Yeah.
Because I feel, at least, because I'm not going to lie, I didn't read a lot, except for Monkey Man O'Brien, because as a teen, anything Art Adams, you're like, oh, I'll even get a book with just an Art Adams cover, even if the inside sucks.
Yeah.
But Monkey Man and O'Brien is probably the only thing of that I actually read. I think I flipped through some Next Men, but I was like, oh, it's not John Byrne doing X-Men, so what do I care? And
yeah.
Frank Miller doing Sin City, I was like, that's cool. But, when you're like around that age of like 13, 14, you're kind of like, you're just looking for like these action comic books, these action style, like what the Image guys were doing. You're not really looking at the Legend imprint. But I feel like maybe it was Dark Horse's reaction to Image Comics, and what the Image guys were doing and accomplishing.
Well, so I found this I went on Byrne Robotics as I was just kind of like looking up stuff for the episode and found John Byrne talking about it, and he credits it to the same thing. He says, I'll just read what he wrote here about it. He goes, Legend was inspired by Image. When Image was an imprint under Malibu. They said, what a great idea, we thought. Let's do the same thing, only do it right. And by right, we meant soliciting books that, never soliciting books that weren't going to happen. No late books, no gimmicks, nothing. Just comic books. We had the finest talents then working in the business, ready to produce those comics. He goes on and he says there's some other stuff. And then he says, I recall Frank Miller and I came up with the name independently, but almost simultaneously.
Oh.
So it definitely was a reaction to Image.
Guys, give me 1 second. Keep talking. Molly wants to watch the show, so I'm trying to find it on YouTube for her.
Yeah, I read some of it. I was never a Mignola guy, so I didn't read any Hellboy. I was part of the hate mail from X-Force, whatever number it was.
Oh, you know
really?
what's funny?
Yeah.
You know what's funny about Mignola is in high school, when I was going to the High School of Art and Design in New York, I didn't like his Molly, I'm trying to do this show here. And then these kids, I didn't like his art. I thought, because at the time, I was into the whole Rob Liefeld. I mean, to me and my friends in art school, like Stephen Platt was like a god, you know what I mean? Because that was that time when he was like doing Prophet. And, it was just, like, oh my God, look at all these veins and bullets and, et cetera. So I remember a friend of mine showing me Mignola's work, and I was like looking at his covers and be like, this is garbage. Who let this guy do comic books?
Well, I'm still not a fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate his art now. I like it, but I did hear someone recently describe it, and I thought what they said is that he basically was like if you took oh geez, now what's the Death Dealer guy?
Frank Frazetta.
Yeah, Frank Frazetta. If you took Frank Frazetta's art and then you just like lowered the opacity and then just like blocked over it with a Sharpie marker and had it be like, like kind of like a negative space image of it or something. They're like, that's Mignola's art. That's how I heard it described. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting because it is that kind of like barbaric tone and like, hunched backs and very simple shapes and good silhouettes. And I appreciate his art now, but I was exactly the same way. I remember there was like, you remember that Marvel cards? It was like the, I don't know what series it was. And I was just looking for the image. I couldn't find it, but it was like an image of it was Mignola drew the card, and I remember just like looking at it and going like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. It was like a Wolverine image, and I was like, what is this? Like, who drew this? Like, I don't even understand. The picture didn't make sense to my head. Like, I couldn't make heads and tails over it, like where the arm was, where the head was, and it just looked like ridiculous to me. And I was like throw it, like this is garbage. Well, but now I can look at it and kind of like it.
My first exposure to Mignola was when I was young, buying stuff from the spinner rack, and they were putting out X-Men Classic. I was buying those, even though I already had the original issues. I'd still buy them, and I hated those covers. Like, they didn't match anything on the inside as far as artistically. And I was always like, what's up with all these little circles? You know how you just randomly draws a circle on the cover? Like, little bitty tiny, but it's there.
I was in the same camp as Terry when it came to the X-Force. Because, God, what was that? 92, 93? When he drew 93, I think it was, when he drew those X-Men issues?
When he did one issue.
The fill-in.
He did the one issue of X-Force.
Yeah, the fill-in. Like,
and he finished Rob's layouts.
Yeah, like I love Mignola now. Like, I think he's a great horror artist, and there's a lot like the stuff he did with DC I liked, and then that one Marvel Prestige book where it's like it's Wolverine and Havoc, I think what it is when they're in the jungle or something.
Meltdown.
Yeah, I thought that was cool, and but when that X-Force issue happened, again, when you're used to such a wave of something happening, which is like, the creators at the time, the Image guys were doing this whole, like, they were taking from action movies, which we talked about in that, the first episode that we did. They were taking from action movies and putting it into comics. And so being a 12, 13-year-old kid, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm ready for some more Rob Liefeld awesomeness. And you open up the book, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
I remember being angry.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't, even though I was like, I was probably 25 maybe, I didn't realize that Rob was just not keeping a schedule, because that's really what it was. But no, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
But that makes sense, because if you look at it, what Rob was capturing and what the other Image guys were capturing at the time was the 11 to 12-year-olds up to, your mid-20s, which is, that's like that prime, maybe late 20s. Because what you're into at those ages is the action movies, the spectacle, the fun, the over-the-topness. And they took that to the next level. They took like that Kirbyism to the next. As if you look at Kirby's comics, it has all that. And they took that and just added that 80s action movie mentality on top of it.
Yeah.
And when you didn't get that in a book, because you're like, this is a great cover, and you open it, you're like, F you, Marvel.
Yeah, I definitely, like I remember the guys, there was always like a guy or two in the comic shop. Like one of the guys who worked at the comic shop that I eventually was shopping at all the time would like, talk crap about, the Image guys And I remember just thinking, like, I just didn't understand. I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this looks way better than the stuff that you're looking at. Like, it's just way better. Like, it's in a different league, you know, altogether. Like, these image books are just taking it to the next level. Like, even like John Byrne's Next Men. I liked John Byrne's art then, actually, because I told you guys, I think in the first episode, like, that's kind of what got me into comics was his West Coast Avengers. But the Next Men stuff looked antiquated to me. You know, at the time, I remember flipping through a couple things like, this looks like old comics, you know, and would just like toss it to the side. Like, I want new stuff. Like, I want the stuff that looks like it's, you know, looking into the future. And that stuff just looked like old.
I think that's what a bit became a bit of a curse for other publishers, because, you know, a lot of publishers tried to, you know, chase that image style and they couldn't do it. And then you had publishers that came out, like when Valiant came out. Valiant was awesome. But I remember one of the criticisms of the time was, you know, the stories are awesome. And people would say the art is good, but man, this art was more spectacular, like, you know, image art. You know, these books would be a total home run. And of course, you know, it's a bunch of teenagers telling each other that. But when you're a teenager, you're thinking like, oh, Magnus Robot Fighter, that's awesome. But of course, in your mind, you're not thinking like, oh, Barry Windsor Smith covers and, you know, the interiors, I forgot who did the interiors. You're not thinking that stuff is awesome. You're like, it's cool, but man, imagine if Rob Liefeld was drawing Magnus Robot Fighter or Jim Lee, you know? So then you're like, yeah, I'm not interested. But I think with Legend, as to what John Byrne said, I think when it came out in 94, we were 2 years into the Image era. And I think even in that second year is when they started having the late books. Correct me if I'm wrong, Terry.
You're right.
Yeah. So I think
the
counter to that, if you're a comic book store owner and you're like, yeah, these books are making me money, but man, I wish these books were late. And you know, these guys were, you know, like Byrne says, like, oh, let's do what they're doing, but you know, our books aren't going to be late, you know. And we're going to do equally as good or better stories. And I think a lot of the stuff that Image did at that time is equal to what they were doing at Legend. But in Legend, in a way, is you're taking these guys like Walt Simonson, John Byrne, you know, Mike Mignola, maybe not so much, like he was known, but I don't think he was probably as big as those guys at that point. So you're taking these, you know, big name, you know, your Frank Miller, you're anchoring it with these certain big name legend creators. They're legends at that point. They were legends. And then you're saying, oh, we're going to go off and do the Image thing, you know? And, of course, that would get a lot of people talking and get people excited. And for me as an R. Adams fan as a teenager, it got me excited. Because, you know, Monkey Man and O'Brien, how can you hate that book? It's, you know, a badass Amazonian chick, and her sidekick is a giant smart monkey, and they're on, like, Fantastic Four type adventures. Like, I don't know if he was inspired by Fantastic Four, but if you look at the Shrumanoid on the bottom right-hand corner, I feel he was inspired by the Mole Man. And then there's monsters that they fight in that miniseries that are equal to, like, what the Fantastic Four fought in their first, like, few issues. And how can you not love that? Like, that's a perfect book for a 12, 13-year-old kid. You're just like, this is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Art Adams' art is always something that has been attractive to me, for sure. I have a bunch of Monkey Man and O'Brien, like trade paperbacks. I have like a hardback collection and then a soft one too, or something, probably of the same books. But again, it's one that I just look at the pictures. I don't think I've ever read it. Like, I just look at it because I just love his art.
Did you ever read it, Terry?
Yeah, I dug it. I see what you're talking about as far as the Fantastic Four bad guys, but the Fantastic Four ripoff at Legend was Danger Unlimited.
Yeah.
You know, John, he made no qualms about that. That was the Fantastic Four, just in a different title under a different company.
I think I put a picture of that in here too. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it goes.
Danger Unlimited.
There you go.
Yeah.
Legend was basically John Byrne, Mike Mignola, and Frank Miller. And there's a couple others that did a couple things here and there. But, like, I mean, there was that one Star Slammers special that Walt put out through Legend.
Yeah.
And some other stuff. But most, who did Concrete?
Paul Chadwick. But I think that survived past the whole Legend imprint. I think it came late it come late into the Legend era Concrete?
I'm not sure, but it looks like there was only 3 miniseries: Concrete, Killer Smile, Strange Armor, and then Think Like a Mountain. Those were all
Killer Smile was July '94.
Yeah.
Yeah, Concrete might have been one of the books that when like Terry said, X-Men was before Legend, and then John Byrne brought it into Legend, and maybe Paul Chadwick was doing Concrete at Dark Horse, and then later on they were like, hey, why don't you bring this book into this and see how it goes. I think it might have been my whole 96 thing might be, I think it only lasted 2 years. I think the imprint maybe only lasted 2 years.
It went to 98. It said
98. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 94 to 98.
96 was the crash, right?
That was a big. You're talking about the market, right?
Yeah. So
that's when they officially call it.
Makes sense.
Well, here's what John Byrne he says about on his forum. He said, reality set in. First we discovered some of the guys, one in particular, could not produce even the small amount of work promised. Then what might be politely deemed other considerations began to creep in. Let's do a Legend card set. Let's include people who have only just joined but don't have any work out yet. That won't really be the same as promoting projects that don't exist. And it says Frank was the first to declare he would no longer use the Legend totem on his books. I followed his lead. And then I was thoroughly castigated online by people who rather dramatically missed the point when I did not use the emblem on Wonder Woman. Oh, well. So it sounds like they were basically just like, this didn't work. Let's get out of here. Stop putting that image on our that totem on our books, and let's just get back to making books.
I think the problem of it was, and it was a great idea to bring these phenomenal artists, phenomenal legendary creators, into this imprint, and let's, not make the mistakes that the Image guys were creating. But the problem is there was only so many books. I think what continued that success at Image and made it such a dominant force that was hard to stand against is that when that first year happened and they were off to the races, it was like, this book's selling 1 million copies, that book's selling 3 million, this book's selling 800,000, is then it's like Eric Larson's like, all right, I'm going to do this spinoff, I'm going to bring this person into that miniseries, this person into that mini. Rob is like, we're going to do Brigade, we're going to do this book, at Top Cow, they're like, we're going to do this and that, and everybody, so you have product that's hitting the market, that's continuing that Image mentality, With an imprint like Legend, it's kind of a smaller thing, and you can't really compete,
No.
There's not that many books.
No, keep
going. When you look at the whole list of books that Legend ever put out, it's like, 20 miniseries is basically worth of books.
18.
That's pretty much it. And some of them are one shots, actually. I'm looking at it now. It's like, it's not much at all.
There's literally 18 titles.
Oh, 18? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you have such a small group of creators, if one messes up, it really can hurt that imprint. Unlike Image, where they're just pumping out, and then they're bringing in guys. They're like, Sam Keith, come in here and do a book. Dale Keown, come in here and do a book. And then so you have these second wave of creators coming in, and they're making money too, hand over fist. Doing, freaking Pitt is showing up. What was it? Pitt was in the back of Youngblood, or was Pitt in the back
Youngblood.
of Cyberforce?
I think it was Youngblood 3.
Yeah. So you're having titles pop up, these other titles, and then Sam Keith's Max appeared in the Darker Image first, right? In the Darker Image book?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's hard. That's hard to compete against. Like, infinitely hard to compete against, And I love what came out of the Legend imprint. Don't get me wrong, and especially later, as when you get older, and in my taste, I still love 90s books. Like, it hasn't changed. Like, there's some 90s books where you look at the art and you're like, I wish it was better. Like, when I was a kid, I thought this was awesome. It's not awesome art-wise, but I still love the enthusiasm in those books. But as you get older, at least I found out, I've come to like, this next book is awesome, and it was kind of when you see the twist in the book, and for people who never read it, sorry. There's that whole like, oh shit, we're in a virtual reality.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. We're the whole Matrixy thing way before the Matrix, and And then when you look at Hellboy and it's a demon fighting demons, and you start these things that you start getting more interested in, along with the other stuff you still love, and then you start looking at these books in a different light, and you're like, oh man, too bad this imprint didn't really take off. But it was always going to be, in my opinion, looking back, always going to be a hard uphill battle to go against what this juggernaut at the time was of Image. And then especially also when Valiant came out too. Because Valiant was that company that came out, but then it got to a point where it just went off like a rocket ship. And so you have these two juggernauts, Image and Valiant, and you got to compete against that. That's a huge, hill to head up on,
And that's what, Byrne says that too. Sorry to keep reading. This will be the last thing I just read in mass here.
No, it's good. It's good to have the insight.
Okay, he goes, I might add that Legend was scuttled almost from the beginning, precisely by the overpowering shadow of Image. At about the midway point in our first year, a consortium of retailers voted Legend the worst new universe, or something of that nature, rather missing the somewhat important point that only two of the titles we started out with, Hellboy and Danger Unlimited, were part of a shared universe. The rest, Sin City, Next Man, Concrete, Martha Washington, and Hard Boiled, were separate entities, some of which even predated Legend, which I think was Hard Boiled. Hard Boiled, I don't think is listed in the list of Legend books, but he credits it as a Legend book.
That's probably the one he was talking about. That guy didn't produce nothing.
Jeff Darrow, yeah.
Oh, Darrow, yeah. Jeff Darrow's a notoriously slow artist. Like, if you look at what you get,
he's awesome. It's worth it. Yeah, I'll wait for because his stuff is just incredible. I love that level of detail.
Shaolin Cowboy. Oh, Shaolin Cowboy is like chef's kiss. It's so wild and crazy and ridiculous. It's just awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible.
No.
I've never read anything. I don't know what Hardboiled is.
Oh, really? Frank Miller wrote it. Jeff Darrow drew it.
It's science fiction, and it's basically the guy is a detective, or is he like a bail bondsman?
Yeah, it's just a hard-boiled detective story.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
And
I just saw some pictures right now.
Yeah, it's a crazy book, and then there's a twist in there what you find out about him. It's kind of like hard-boiled detective with a little bit of Blade Runner. You can see maybe Frank was inspired by Blade Runner.
No.
And it's a wild book.
Yeah.
It's a wild book. They so many times tried to adapt it into a movie, and it's just one of those movies that I'm just like, if they ever did it, it would probably make no money because it would be awesome to see, but probably nobody would be interested.
Yeah. I'll check it out. I'll buy them.
This is one. So I've never heard of this book. This 2112, John Byrne's 2112, and so
that's a one shot,
putting a slideshow together. Yeah. I don't know. Is it a one?
It was a one shot. It was fun. Good book.
Yeah, wasn't 2012 what he originally wanted? Wasn't he going to be involved with 2099?
I don't know.
I could swear.
I didn't know that.
I could swear he was going to be involved, and I could be wrong. Somebody, when they're rewatching this, might comment and say like, "Nah, man." But I could swear at one point he was going to be involved in Marvel's 2099, and I think he wanted it to be where 2099 was a more utopian world, like the superheroes had made a more better world, and Marvel was like, nah, we don't have to do that. And I think 2112 might have been those ideas of being like, oh, this is what I would have done. But then, I think it was supposed to be the future of his whole Danger Unlimited, I think, world and all that.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the Hard Boiled. I just pulled it up and shared it right here. If you see,
is that from Amazon?
No, it's Atomic Junk Shot.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's crazy good. It's one book of man's journey into this case, and then and then when you find out what's really going on, again, as a comic book, it's spectacular. As a movie, I don't know if it would actually work. Wow. And see a version of those colors. Those colors,
Dude, you are getting destroyed as far as your voice goes, Marco.
Turned into Max Headroom again.
Yeah.
Is it? Let me see if I can.
You're not freezing up this time, so that's good.
Maybe this phone. It's just I should have used Shannon's phone. Actually, her phone is right here. Maybe I'll hold on. Give me a second. I'm gonna drop out. I'll be right back. Tag thing. Her phone is waiting. So I think her phone. I'm not gonna do any crap. So I'll be right back. Give me like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. We'll see you in a minute.
It was really making Max Headroom sounds there at the end.
Yeah. This is a book like Hard Boiled. I read it. I read like the hardback of it when I was working at the comic shop back in like 2002 or 3. So like all this stuff actually, like none of the like the legend stuff. I didn't read any of this in the 90s. I read it all in the 2000s. Like looking back, because it's when I got out of the Navy. I was in my 20s, and my sensibilities had changed a little bit as far as comics went, and I wanted to see this more mature stuff. And I started checking out Sin City. I read all those while I was working, just at work. We were allowed to kind of like have a book there. And if no customers were in the shop, we could just be sitting there reading until someone walked in. And so I read all the Sin Cities. I read this. I don't think I'm looking at the list. I never read Hellboy. I have a bunch of Hellboy comics, but I've never read any of those. The 2112 is interesting to me since I've seen it here. I want to read that, and I will eventually read Monkey Man and O'Brien stuff.
I love Madman.
You love what, Madman?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think I don't remember how many issues came out. I remember the first issue wasn't Legend, and the second issue was. It was funny.
Yeah, it says number 2 through 11.
Oh, with the 2 through, yeah. But I've been getting these Madman giant oversized omnibuses lately. They're like bigger than a Marvel omnibus, like taller and wider. Yeah. And
Madman's the only one I forgot to put in the slideshow here.
Yeah. Allred. I was slow to warm on Allred, but now he's like one of my favorites.
You dug his X-Force?
Yeah, but it wasn't X-Force.
Right, but you liked it as a book, like as its own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I would buy it, I would be angry because it wasn't X-Force. Yeah. But then when they changed it to X-Statics, I was happy.
Yeah. Was that around the time when they changed it to X-Statics? Is that around the same time that they changed it to Soldier X? And
no, I don't think so.
Totally different thing.
Yeah, the Soldier X and Agent X, from what I think what I've heard was Marvel trying to find a way out of paying royalties. There he is.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, we were talking about Madman. Yeah, I've been getting these giant oversized omnibuses lately. There's 3 of them out now, and they're so beautiful.
How's like the paper quality and everything?
It's very glossy. It's excellent.
Oh yeah, Dark Horse is one of the best when it comes to hardcovers. Like I've never had a bad Dark Horse hardcover. Like their stuff is phenomenal.
Yeah, I was talking about how I liked Allred so much. I didn't like him a whole lot in the beginning. And I kind of warmed to him slowly, but now I love him. But we were talking about the X-Force, and I was like, that wasn't X-Force.
Oh yeah. I love the Ecstatics, but the whole thing they did, whatever to however that situation was, whether it was to screw Rob or whatnot, but the whole X-Force Ecstatics thing, whatever Marvel's drama was with that. But that comic book when they dropped X-Force and they made it Ecstatics, it was crazy good. Like that whole thing was like Doom Patrol level good, like Morrison's Doom Patrol level good. And then with a little more of the what's that one book? Umbrella Academy. It had a little more of that humanity of Umbrella Academy.
That first issue where the guy got torn in half stopping, was it a spaceship or something?
I think so. I think that's what it was, like a crash.
His name was Blitzkrieg. Yeah. And you read the whole issue and you think he's going to be the star, and he's gone at the end of the first issue.
Oh, Derek posted in our group chat the whole thing of where John Byrne talks about Stan Lee 2099 and its relevance to 2112.
Cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see what it says. What is this? Who is this talking? This is a quote from John Byrne.
Yeah, I think it's from John Byrne.
In 1990, Stan Lee contacted me and asked me if I would like to be the editor-in-chief of a whole new line he was going to create at Marvel, a line which would be set in Marvel's future, unconnected to the Marvel universe as we knew it. As it happened, I had been giving some thought to a future verse of my own, and being flattered by Stan's offer, I suggested that what I had come up with, but at the time thought I had no place to develop, would fit the bill for his project. To this end, I plotted. Stan was to script and drew a 64-page pilot. When he asked for more specific Marvel Universe references, I tried to keep the thing clean so as not to turn the whole MU into a Superboy story, but Stan thought we should at least hint at what had happened to some of the folks we knew from the present continuity. So then he said I just added 12 more additional pages and some bridging material to make them fit. Thus, when I took the project back, it was luckily not a case of rewriting or redrawing, but simply of removing pages I had not wanted in there in the first place. Interesting. So he made this to be like a Stan Lee project with Marvel, had some 12 additional pages that he had drawn to connect to the Marvel universe, and then just ripped them out and released the comic as his own book. That's pretty cool.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's what 2112 was.
Yeah. It's the only book that when I was putting this together, I was like, I've never heard of this, and it looks really cool. Like I really want to read that.
I think they re-released it not too long ago in some strange form or something. Maybe IDW did.
Yeah. IDW has collected and released everything Byrne. Anytime he puts out something, whether it's licensed work like the Star Trek stuff he does or creator owned, I don't know, that might change now, because I think his go-to point person there at IDW is no longer there. So who knows if that's going to be the future place for anything John Byrne, but that's where all his creator owned stuff has been so far.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it now, but I thought for sure that they reprinted it.
Yeah, I think they did, but I think they might have printed it with. I think they might have combined it with the Babe or some other book into like a bigger edition book. So I don't know if it says 2112 on it anymore.
Oh, this is the book actually. So I'll share it here. Here's the book of Mignola's that I actually really do like his art. Now is the Fawford and the Grey Mouser. If you guys have seen that.
Oh yeah, isn't that based on a German story, like an epic poem or something like that?
Yeah, it's some
or novel
mythology or something. But and I think there's been a bunch of other stories about it, maybe books and different things over the years. But Mignola did a really cool comic book. Let me see. Here it is. If you can see that, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that. That was Dark Horse. Yeah.
I always have thought of Dark Horse as like a very like premier organization that puts out like basically like really fine, really good, high quality, high production value, the best of everything. You know, it's like it's weird that I don't read Hellboy and I don't read a lot of stuff from Dark Horse, but I do think of them as like one of the premier companies that they really care.
Right now, they're putting out stuff written by Bendis, Kevin Smith, and Scott Snyder.
Yeah, and James Tynion announced an imprint there. They brought Stan Sakai back from IDW. IDW poached him and brought Usagi Jimbo there. And then Dark Horse was like, Stan, come back to Dark Horse and we'll give you your own imprint. So now he's back at Dark Horse.
And they must have made some deal with Marvel because they're doing some Star Wars stuff now too.
Yeah, I think Disney took they took the Star Wars stuff from Marvel. I think.
No, it's still the only thing they're doing at Dark Horse is stuff that kind of looks cartoony.
Yeah, I think they're doing the Star Wars Adventure stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think they might go back to doing the actual regular Star Wars stuff. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
That's a possibility. But it's funny, talking about Legend and Image and Legend trying to, do what Image was doing, but, better in some ways. It's kind of happening again, this little like rivalry. Because if you look at Image, that they ever since maybe like 10 years ago when they brought in like Vertigo creators and big names and like, hey, do your stuff here because Vertigo is going down the drain, and they just became this be all end all place again for creator owned. books, if you look at Dark Horse, Terry and Mike there, Dark Horse is kind of like, okay, we see what you're doing, so we're going to give people imprints. Bendis, you got an imprint. Kevin Smith, you have an imprint. James Tynion, imprint. Snyder, imprint. We're just bring your books here. Just bring them here. We're gonna treat you like gold. And I feel that's a counter to what Image has been doing for the last 5, maybe 10 years. In the industry when it comes to bringing the biggest names, to do their creator-owned books there.
Yeah. They. I don't ever see Marvel losing Star Wars as long as Disney owns them.
Yeah, that's probably true because they'll put a top creator on a book and then they'll sell at least 50,000 copies of each issue, and then they'll be like, all right, we'll just do another miniseries later down the line. But I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel does at some point lose the Aliens and Predator license, because I remember when they got it, it was like, oh, here are these people on it, and it was really big, but I haven't heard anything about the Marvel Aliens and Predators books. It's kind of like people were like, yeah, and then they stopped caring. Yeah.
Next week they're putting out, I think it's Aliens, the Aliens Omnibus Volume 1, reprinting all the old original Dark Horse stuff.
That
not all of it, but the first volume of it.
Those Dark Horse stories, like, I wish Disney didn't take it away from Dark Horse, because I don't know if Marvel can compete with those stories, because one of that Aliens vs. Predator first,
the Butch Geist one.
I think it was. That first miniseries, which I think was written by Mark Verheiden, who went on to write Time Cop, work on Ash versus the Evil Dead, and he's done a lot of popular TV shows and written on movies and all that. He wrote that first miniseries, and that led to that really great Aliens vs. Predator script that never got turned into a movie. That was the best movie never made, one of the best movies never made in Hollywood, and that came out of that comic book. Out of that one comic book, Dark Horse has know what to do with licenses.
Yeah, even Marvel Star Wars doesn't hold up to Dark Horses.
Oh no, especially not that last series. What was that last series where it was Luke's descendant and Luke is the ghost?
Oh, Legacy.
That stuff was great.
Legacy was awesome. Marvel's finally just now starting to put some titles on their stories instead of just Darth Vader, Han Solo. And now they're finally putting the High Republic but it took them 6 years? Just stop making Luke Skywalker.
Well, it's like what they're doing with Conan, right? I was getting the Marvel Conan books at first, hoping they were going to be really good and everything, and because I did like what Carrie Nord was doing at that series, which I think was Dark Horse too, right? The Carrie Nord Conan.
Yep.
That was really good stuff. And then Marvel got it. I collected it for 10 or 11 issues, and then I dropped it. And I was, but I was going to go all in on it, and it just didn't do it for me. But I think there's a new Conan coming out that looks good.
Yeah, it's from Titan. Titan Comics now has the license. They made a deal with the license owners, so they have it. And it's well, I think it's going to do, it might not be as good as the Dark Horse stuff, but I think it's going to be better than the Marvel stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's going to be under-ordered severely.
Oh, yeah, probably, because,
because nobody pays attention to Titan.
Yeah, and it's also because, retailers probably also have, Conan fatigue. They're like, all right, we're in on Dark Horse. We're in on Marvel thinking it was going to be, utterly amazing and maybe, back to the 1970s stuff. And then the biggest thing they had was Conan with the Avengers,
Yeah.
But speaking of big over-the-top, one of the things I wanted to mention about Sin City was, I feel with Sin City, and I've only read the first 2 volumes, but I feel with Sin City, what Frank Miller brought to that was he brought that superhero energy. Because if you look at Sin City, it's a hard-boiled noir, world, but it really has a lot of superhero aspects. Big over the, if you look at Marv, he's that the Thing. The Incredible Hulk, he's this big hulking menace. And, you look at some of these characters, there's characters that have, the Yellow Bastard, there's characters that have, I think at one point there's a character that has a robotic arm or something like that. Sin City has these sort of weird, noir meets a little bit of sci-fi with these characters that are superheroes themselves. Because all that stuff that Marv goes through, no normal person can go through all that stuff that he goes through in his story. and then like come out on top. And it is very much taking that over the top superhero aspect and throwing it into a, you know, hard boiled Nor blender, and then you get this really just cool book.
I never read any of that when it was coming out. It was probably 2008 or 9 before I read any of that.
Yeah, like I read, I think an issue or two when it first came out, and then again because you know, and the only thing of reading that was when Jim Lee did the whole Death Blow thing, where he's doing that Frank Miller-ish, you know, type thing. Then you're kind of like, I see what you're going for. But again, when I was a teenager, when I was like, and from 11 to like 14, 15, for me, I would look at these new books and I'd be like, this is cool, but it's still not as cool as Image. And then I throw it across the room and I'd be like, next.
Yeah, I just always wanted everything to look as glossy as the Image stuff as well. Like I always wanted to read like a sword and sorcery book, but drawn in the Image style. Like I always wanted to read like stuff that I would see, you know, like say like a Conan book or a book about pirates or something like that. But I wanted it to be drawn like, you know, Joe Benitez or something, you know, like I wanted it to be that like super glossy, sleek style, or like a J. Scott Campbell or whoever, you know, and you just don't get that much. Like whenever someone does like an old period piece book or something, they'll kind of take on like an older art style and draw it in that way. And it's like, I just think it's a big gap. I mean, there's been some stuff now, you know, like you get like a David Finch doing like that, some type of Conan, you know, art on like the, what was that? Was that Conan and the Avengers or Savage Avengers?
I think it might have been Savage Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they're just like throwing a bunch of characters in there.
Not to make this too much about Image since it is the Legend episode, but
yeah,
you bring up a good point because I think that's why all of us, when Prophet came out, we thought it was so cool because it was this Prophet is the Conan type, the sword and sorcery type, even though his background story isn't, but he looks like a Conan type character, but he's got badass guns. He's got this whole, you know, science fiction background. And then he's got these swords and guns. And he looks like something that would have stepped out of a Conan post-apocalyptic world, you know?
Yeah.
And I think when that book came out, that's why everybody went nuts over it, especially when Splat took over. And then it was just like, it looked like you were getting like something like Frank Frazetta-ish.
Yeah. Derek says that's why I love Maximum Press, and that's a good point too. Like I remember when what's the book came out about
War Child.
Well, yeah, War Child, the Alan Moore and
that was Sword and Sorcery, but that was drawn current.
Yeah, drawn current. Look good. And then
Evangeline.
Evangeline, Fallen Angel, Warrior, Swords, Angels. I mean, that's Evangeline. I mean, we got to do a whole episode on Evangeline because that's like a whole, you know. We got to do, and again, we are taking away from the Legend, but we need to do an episode that's just Maximum Press because I was such a fanboy of that. Like, and I was following everything, all the story, the brouhaha, you know, the Maximum Press drama, and then when, you know, Rob left, and then Maximum Press, and I followed Maximum Press everywhere until it was no more, and then, you know, then what do you call it? Awesome Entertainment. Like, we really do need to do an episode that's maybe Maximum Press and Awesome Entertainment. I think that would be a good 2-for episode that people would like. And we can highlight a lot of the awesomeness of that. Yeah, Cybrid was great. Mm-hmm. Pull up that image that you have of Legend where it shows all the characters, that like nice. Yeah. Yeah, one thing I noticed too in the Sin City as I'm looking through is there's all this like swastika imagery in there. It's pretty crazy how often I saw it pop up as I was like going through the picture. Here you go.
Yeah. Like, so you have Marv on the left, and you have Hellboy, you have Martha Washington. I didn't realize Martha Washington was under the Legend imprint. And then you have, I think these are the Next Men characters.
Yeah. And
then you have some more. I think those are Sin City characters, those twin characters. You have Monkey Man and O'Brien. Oh, whatchamacallit? Big Guy and Rusty. That was really good. That's in the same vein of Hard Boiled, where it was like a one-shot. You know, I think Big Guy and Rusty was like a 48-page or something like that, or 60-something pages.
It didn't have the Legend imprint on it, though.
Maybe it was supposed to be, and then that's
when
things went
maybe it had fallen out or something.
Yeah, because the Big Guy and Rusty, like, I didn't realize at the time, like, I knew about
Astro Boy, but for some reason my brain didn't put together 2 and 2 of like, oh, Rusty's, he's Astro Boy, and then big guy is Gigantor. And that was a very cool comic book that led to actually a very cool animated series that was in the 90s on Fox, and it lasted like 26 episodes. And it was supposed to be, you remember that, Terry?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be, I found out it was supposed to be that they were going to do where if that was a hit, they were supposed to have a Monkey Man and O'Brien animated series too. Like it was supposed to be, it was gonna be like an hour block, But then, the Rusty didn't get a second season, and then they decided not to do a Monkey Man and O'Brien animated series. But that's a little, for those who watch this episode who may not have known. And if you haven't seen the Big Guy and Rusty cartoon, go watch it because it was really good, very well animated for its time for 90s. And the scripts are still good; they still hold up.
Is that entire cover drawn by Byrne?
I don't think it is. I think that Monkey Man and O'Brien looks like Adams, and the Big Guy and Rusty look like Darrow. But I think a good chunk of them might be, or it might be maybe.
I think they're all drawn by their own people.
Maybe.
You know what it also looks like? It looks like it was drawn by their own people, but maybe they also inked each other because it kind of has this like
maybe
where it's kind of
like look.
Yeah. Now, this big brain guy up here, is that supposed to be Byrne's version? I forget. Is that supposed to be Byrne's version of what's his name from Marvel?
MODOK?
Yeah, MODOK.
I think that dude was in Next Man, but I don't remember.
Yeah. This big guy in Rusty?
Yeah, I was gonna see if I could just look at some of the animation.
Yeah, play clip.
Play. Can you guys hear it?
Yeah. Like, it was really good. Like, I was amazed this thing even came out.
A wasted shot cost taxpayers dearly.
Wow, that is cool. Wow. I'll have to check this out.
Here comes company. Spry devil.
Say hi. I don't want to play it too long.
Yeah. So don't get hit for
that looks really cool, though, actually. Yeah. I think I have to, like, pause it every couple seconds or something. But
Systems jammed. Time to go low tech.
Look at that. Did what?
Is it playing good on your guys' end? It's like freezing on my end.
No, everything's good.
Okay, I don't know why it's.
Hey, that picture you had of the legend.
Yeah.
That was just I don't think I have that wizard. Which one is that?
It looks like 81, does it say? Or 31?
Yeah, I think it's 81. Either 81 or 31.
Okay, I'm going to look.
Yeah. There is a lot of the wizards. You can, on the Internet Archive, they have a ton of the wizards scanned in. So you can actually just like read them on there. Not all of them, but they might have this one.
And then Concrete was a book I never read when it was part of the Legend, either before or when it was part of the Legend imprint. I did read some of it later, and I really liked it. But it's just like wild slice of life comic where this dude, if I'm not mistaken, gets kidnapped by aliens, and he gets put 31. Into this. He gets
31.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 31. Sorry, Marco.
No,
yeah,
it's okay.
31. Yeah. What were you saying?
What I was saying is Concrete is this weird slice of life book where this guy, if I'm not mistaken, I might be butchering this, he gets abducted by aliens and his brain gets put into, I believe, that concrete body, and then he gets sent back to Earth. As I think he's supposed to be like an emissary of the aliens, something like that. And it's just it's like a really like slice of life book that just happens to have this like little bit of science fiction edge over it. It's like a really funky comic book, but it's a really good book too. Like it's beautifully drawn. Like Paul Chadwick went on to do, I believe he did design work and maybe storyboard work on the Matrix films.
Interesting. Chad.
No, you're right. That's kind of what I remember too, Marco.
Yeah.
But he was still like just a regular guy inside that body.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just him dealing with like being this creature type thing in this like world. And I think he almost gets this like a little bit of celebrity status, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's a pretty cool book. It's not, anything action packed. You gotta like the type of book it is. And it kind of reminds me of the book that comes out later that's now a TV show, Resident Alien, which is, an alien coming to this small town, and then, and Resident Alien is like, kind of like that. It's like a little slice of life with this whole thing going on with this alien stuck in this small town.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it says he did work on Paul Chadwick. It said after working on several Matrix comics, he was asked by the Wachowskis to write the MMORPG, The Matrix Online. He outlined the general story direction and offshoots of events in the game. He also illustrated cards for Magic the Gathering.
Did he do anything on the films? I think he did stuff on the films.
Doesn't look like it.
I know Steve Scrooge did.
Yeah,
I know Steve Scrooge did. He did storyboard work, and I thought Paul Chadwick did some design work.
It doesn't say it on his wiki, but he might have. Yeah.
Art Adams with Monkey Man and O'Brien, I think 10 years ago. Remember when Dark Horse, they were doing like those web comic books with web shorts on their website? And I think he did a Monkey Man and O'Brien short on there that's never been collected. Like he did the Monkey Man and O'Brien miniseries. Then he did, I think years after that, a Monkey Man and O'Brien short story. And then he did another one on the Dark Horse website. And I think either both short stories haven't been collected yet, but like Dark Horse hasn't reprinted that trade in forever. And I'm like, with how hot Art Adams still is, I'm hoping one day they do like a, deluxe hardcover and include those stories, because I would get that. Like I still love that book to this day. And I really wish, Art Adams would do another Monkey Man and O'Brien miniseries.
Oh yeah, we should do any interiors.
What was the last interiors he did? Was that Ultimate X?
I think so. Wait, hold on. I thought he did a one issue of a book after that. Well, was the Authority was before Ultimate X, or was it after?
It was before.
Before? Okay. Before. It might be Ultimate X. Like I liked that Ultimate X, and it might have been maybe because I liked the Art Adams art so much, so maybe the story wasn't that good. But I remember at the time digging it, but maybe I'm wrong.
It was good stuff.
I love Ultimate X. Yeah, everything until Kirkman got on it. It kind of ruined it for me.
I remember,
and I love Kirkman. Yeah,
I remember everyone got mad. Good. I remember. So here's the thing with the Ultimate X-Men. I remember reading it and being like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then the thing that pissed off everybody at the comic book store I was going to, that my friend he owned the shop, is that when it got revealed that Cable was Wolverine, everybody was like, "This is a bunch of garbage." Like,
yeah.
That's when they turned on Kirkman. They were like, "Screw this bullshit."
Didn't Kirkman make Ultimate Iceman gay too?
No, I don't know.
I don't remember.
I thought that was just the 616 version.
No, I think they did it in Ultimate too.
I don't remember that. I think he might have, but I think that was the tipping point. That's what, because everybody was with Kirkman until that happened, and then I remember just people because I worked at that shop also, and just people being like, "Yeah, no, I'm done. I can't stand with this after this. Like, it makes no sense." They're like, why is he Cable in this universe? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, it's an alternate universe. They're like, yeah, I get that, but it makes no sense how he'd be Cable in this alternate universe. Like, nobody could wrap their brain around it. They were like, screw this.
Yeah,
that was kind of creepy.
I'm going to see. I will be seeing Art Adams at this Fan Expo next week on the 26th. On the 26th, I'm going to this in San Francisco. The Art Adams, Joe Quesada, Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb. Got a bunch of names coming here.
Ask him for me. Say, hey, we ever going to get any more Monkey Man and O'Brien? Just I want to see what he says. I just want to know what he says.
I'll try to do like a little on-camera interview or something, and I can like play it on one of our future episodes with some.
That would be great.
Like a mini. I'll just. Yeah.
And tell Joe Quesada you're glad he's not with Marvel anymore.
Well, he is. He is with them.
The way he can stop blocking Killraven.
Dude, If
Look, Joe Benitez going to be there too.
If they
Joyce Chin, of course, with Adams.
If Killraven comes out next year, like I'm hoping there's some big announcement next year that they're finally going to release the Robert Kirkman, Liefeld Killraven. Because if they do, I will buy that. I will buy variants. I will support that like crazy, and then I will buy the hardcover edition of that when it's collected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, those pages that have been seen are so pretty.
It's like you probably seen more than us, but like just the stuff that was released online years ago, I was just sitting there like, who doesn't want to print money? That's print money comics, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, don't leave that stuff hanging. It's ridiculous to do that.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Q's gone now, but that other guy's still there. Bogart.
Is he the one who's the publisher?
Yeah, he's the guy. I don't know what he is, but I think he's the other guy that's been blocking it.
I just don't. Why does animosity need to come into play when it comes to making money?
Yeah.
It's like just print the freaking book. I was.
All right, guys,
it was Colossus.
Hey.
It was Colossus.
But Colossus, Ultimate Colossus, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when that happened.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to excuse myself, guys, because I wasn't prepared for the night, and I have a commitment I made, so I gotta bail.
No worries. We're actually just past the hour point right now, anyway, so we can probably just wrap it.
No, that's actually be perfect because Molly's like needs help with some laundry, so she's like she's right behind me.
We are taking next week off, correct?
Yes, we'll take next week off, and then the week after that, we're going to try to get a guest to come on the show to be interviewed, a 90s creator. I got to talk to Terry about that. No, it's not who you think, Terry. It's the other person. And see if we can get them to come on. I don't know if this is going to be enough notice. If not, then we'll do an episode. Maybe we'll do the Maximum Press Awesome Entertainment episode.
Sure. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good one.
Awesome.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. See ya.
All right. Have a good one.
Click like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe, please. Share. Let the word be known. My kid subscribed, so follow her lead. Bye.